Love, live, life. Life can be glorious and hideous. Stick your feet to the ground. Don't think you are counted out. Don't let the wind pull you and tear you apart. Let yourself live freely and love, and you'll be happy. No limits. Just keep on.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another Iron Will podcast with me, Shane Warner, and
John Chase.
So what this podcast is all about is we are trying to get stories from people that have been through a traumatic experience in their lives and came out a different person.
Yeah, they have all created an iron will. So what is an iron will? A burning determination that cannot be stopped or hindered by anything, willing to do anything to get a desired outcome, extremely resilient. So what we like to say is just keep punching.
Yeah. So sit back and relax, and we're going to start the show. So I don't have my co-host with me here today because he has like 10 little girls, and so he has to stay there and tend them.
That's funny. I have been there before. Has he got young kids?
Yes. Well, he has 6 kids of his own, and yeah, 6 daughters. So wow, 6 daughters. Yeah,
my goodness.
And today we have on the Iron Will podcast with us Tim Douglas of the Inspired Way podcast. And so we are going to find out what and who inspires him. And so what can you tell our listeners about the Inspired Way? And like, for example, when did it start and what was your motivation behind starting it?
Shane, thanks first of all for having me today on the Iron Will podcast. Man, you're doing some amazing things. I really love following you and what you're accomplishing. So kudos to you. I just wanted to honor you first of all for
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, man. So just keep it up. And so the Inspired Way was really birthed out of an idea, or not even an idea, excuse me. It was birthed out of a story that I had learned many years ago. I had studied leadership for, I can't even put a number to it. It's just been, probably over 20 plus years of studying leadership and organizational health and culture, just from the roles that I had done over the years in the industry that I was in. It was always in a form of leadership. So it just kind of just felt natural because I was always into personal and professional development. So leadership development just became a part of that as I was in these different roles, in different companies. And so I'm sorry, you had a question?
No.
You good?
No. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I had heard this story about what leaders can learn by watching cow and buffalo and how they face storms. Huh. And I'll share that story real quick because it'll tie right into the Inspired Way.
That's interesting. Interesting motivation.
Yeah. And so one of the stories, and it's actually a true story. This is not like some fictional story. This is actually, you can watch this play out.
Okay.
And some of the best places to watch this play out is in the plains on the east side of the Rockies, where buffalo or bison cohabitate with cow. And so what happens is the storm will come up over the Rockies. The cow will see the storm coming. The cow will actually run east, trying to avoid the storm, trying to get out of the way, right? Trying to avoid it at all costs. And by doing so, their short little legs and fat bodies don't allow them to run very fast. And so now they're running in misery. Now they're running with the storm that they're trying to avoid, which increases the amount of time, stress, frustration, and pain that they have to deal with that storm. The buffalo, on the other hand, sees the exact same storm. They face the storm. They run into the storm. And by doing so, the storm passes over the top of them. and decreases the amount of time, stress, and frustration that they have to deal with the storm. And so as a leader, I had seen so many, it resonated with me because I'd seen so many leaders in the organizations that I worked for, or even leaders that I had, right? And that just would not deal with certain things. They would avoid things.
Wouldn't face the storm.
No, they would not face the storm. And by not facing the storm, if we're taking this leadership role, for the listeners who are listening, it's like, I think we've all probably seen this, whether we're in a leadership role or not. We all know that the leader needs to have a conversation with somebody or deal with something, and they don't.
Yeah.
It increases the amount of time that the entire department or group or team or whatever has to deal with it. It increases the amount of frustration that everybody has to deal with it. And so it's like, just deal with it and get it over with, right? And so I think that's it's a hard thing to do. And one of the things that I learned through the podcast, since I started my podcast, which is called The Inspired Way. And The Inspired Way is into the storm, is to face our storms.
Yeah.
And the storm can be anything that we avoid. And maybe I could break that down in just a moment. But one of the things that I was learning over the course of last year was that many people just didn't know how to be a buffalo. You know, it's like, because my mantra is face the storm and be a buffalo.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, even guests on a show, were like, man, I just didn't know how to be a buffalo. I didn't know, what, society or culture or my parents, they all avoided things. And so I just learned how to avoid things. I learned how to live life well, not dealing with anything. And so until, certain things come upon them, and then they obviously, sometimes we have to deal with stuff. And so,
but having that like mentality beforehand, before you have to face it, is like, it's so valuable of a lesson to learn.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that, I want to do more of, is more teaching as far as like, okay, if there are people out there, which we've identified, there are some people out there that just don't know how to be a buffalo. They just don't know how to face the storm. And let's be real. Like, a lot of it for some people creates anxiety. Mm-hmm. It creates a lot of stress to even think of facing the storm. I would rather, I'm just saying, this is maybe what they're saying. I don't know, but I would rather run away from the storm and increase the stress that it causes, because I don't have the anxiety of trying to face it.
Okay.
And so one of the things that, I want to do with the podcast this coming year is to have guests on that actually talk about, like, how do we calm our mind? How do we calm our, how do we get control of our breath, right? In the midst of that. So physiology, what are the things that we can do in the midst of a storm, in the midst of the amygdala in our brain going haywire, because that's what's happening, right? It's that fight or flight signal that's going off in the brain. And so how do we, using our breath or controlling our mind, how do we face the storms? And
that's really interesting, because I like, since my brain injury, like, I oftentimes forget to breathe. And so it's just something that I personally deal with. And so I would be interested in, like, learning techniques for controlling my breath and stuff like that. Yeah.
Man, I love that. One of the things that I do now, like, you probably didn't even notice it, but when you said breath, it's a trigger now in my brain that when I see the word, when I hear the word, or when I hear someone take a deep breath, I breathe in really deep. It's just a trigger now. Yeah. And then I just let it go. And it's a nice calming, trigger. It's like, okay, and I don't make it so obvious, but it's a trigger for me to take a deep breath, take a breath. Yeah. It's okay. Take a breath. And so, part of that is I have a trigger on my phone, and I've had it on there probably for about 2 years now.
Just an alarm or something like that?
Yeah, it's just a reminder. Okay. So I set it at 2 10, noon, and 2. And it just says, at first for a long time, it just said, get outside.
Yeah.
And now I have on the back end of that, get outside, breathe.
Yeah.
Because there's times when I was finding like I couldn't get outside, whether it was raining or whatever. And so I was just avoiding going outside. And so I thought, you know what, just take some time to breathe in those times. And so that's what I do now, is just every time I see that. And now it's just a trigger, like I said, now naturally I'll see someone, take a deep breath, or I'll hear it, or I'll hear the word. And so it just triggers it on me. So
yeah, that's something I'm going to for sure focus on, because like I said, I forget to breathe, and it's oftentimes when I'm like working out. And so I need to breathe, but something in my brain from my brain injury, like doesn't, I don't trigger that response.
I'm interested in something, Shane. If you're interested in trying this, I'm no doctor by no means, but it's just things that I've learned through neuroscience, through studying neuroscience, and other people who study it or practice a lot of the things that neuroscientists find. And that is, as a matter of fact, I'll tell that story in just a moment. But what I was going to say was what they have found is, because the brain is, obviously neurons that fire together, wire together.
Yeah.
So the way to get the brain to fire, it's either through seeing something, reading it, or doing it, and it's in form of repetition, right? So it has to be a repetitive form. So if we're not doing something repeatedly on a regular basis, like consistent regular basis, it's not happening. And so one of the techniques that I learned just not that long ago, and I was like, oh my gosh. And what it was a gentleman was talking about taking sticky notes. If it's an area of your life you are trying to change, put sticky notes up and have the phrase or the words, or the way you want to show up in the world, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Things for you
kind of just like affirmations, or what?
Yes, it could be just affirmations. It could be whatever. It could be like I am worthy of whatever, I am capable of whatever, those are just affirmations. But it could be in the thing that I was going to challenge you with is just put on there just a sticky note that says breathe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Take a breath, breathe.
Put it on my mirror
your mirror. Or I even thought of a card, like taking a cue card. And when you're working out, because you said like you're working out, and those are the times sometimes you forget. It's like, take that cue card and carry it with you from station to station, and put it on your bench, put it on the bar, whatever you got to do. And just as a reminder, it's constantly right there. It's consistently, your mind is seeing it. So it's going inside, and maybe that repetitive thing. So where the exciting part I was going to share with you is our friend Jeff Forrester. So when he wanted to change some areas in his life he was struggling in, he wrote on sticky notes all over. And now, which the funny thing is, that other doctor that I was hearing, when he said that, it reminded me of Jeff's story, where Jeff wrote sticky notes, and these affirmations are just a different view, because he had a very negative view of himself, right? And so he wrote on the sticky notes this new view of who he was, how he was showing up in the world. And the mind at the time wasn't believing it. But over time, he became that. And he is that now. Yeah. Right. So anyway, I just thought maybe that was cool, man.
Awesome.
Yeah. Jeff's an amazing dude, man. He's,
I started reading his book, Unleashed Potential. And it's so good.
Yeah, it is. There's so much nuggets in there. And I love the stories.
Information.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that might be something you try, is just a little cue card or sticky notes around and breathe.
Yeah. That's a great reminder. And I like I said, I need it. So I might just set up some like alarms on my phone also.
Yeah.
Just that just say breathe, and get outside like yours. And yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful, man.